listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast. Was this a disappointing point for Arsenal, or will this be one that we look back at the end of the season and think, let's be thankful of that? It wasn't the performance we hoped for. Last Sunday, we absolutely annihilated Spurs. It was a massacre in the North London derby with a 4-1 win, followed by an absolutely breathtaking performance against Bayern Munich at home in the Champions League. However, the game against Chelsea was one that really favoured man-to-man. It was aggressive, it was physical, and it was a game that Arsenal really struggled in. The truth is, the team sheet really hit a blow to every Arsenal fan. The absence of William Saliba, coupled with Gabriel's injury, really made things difficult going into this game. It meant a new pairing of Hincapie and Mosquera in the game, and that was one that we've only seen once before. The Brighton game in the Carabao Cup, and ultimately it was one that was going to be very difficult for the pair to adapt to go into and really own the game, and that showed early on. But let's have a look at some of the numbers. So first up, you look at Arsenal's possession in this game. Chelsea down to 10 men. Arsenal held 62% of the ball at Stamford Bridge, but only had 4 shots on target and were outshot with 11 shots to 8 in total. We did generate an XG of 1.26 in comparison to Chelsea's 0.73, but we didn't create enough in this game. It felt that we made some technical errors, some tactical errors, and ultimately we lost too many duels. The biggest part of this game was the physical errors for me. And I'm going to get into some of that. What went wrong? Why did it go wrong? And why this could be a good point come the end of the season. But you look at Arsenal's concentration of play. It was a case that a lot of the attack came down the right-hand side of the pitch. And it was the same for Chelsea. Both sides attacked down that side predominantly. Chelsea with Reece James, absolutely phenomenal on the day and rightly awarded man of the match. And with Arsenal, Declan Rice was a major threat, but it was Bukayo Saka's side where we really saw things firing for us. And the game was one of those, it started on a knife edge. It started with a very physical, dominant, aggressive style, and that was Chelsea trying to put their stamp on it. Caicedo really kind of led them in that approach. He was aggressive, he was physical, and he ultimately got sent off for being over aggressive. But before the red card, he was pushing, he was shoving, he was kicking people. We saw Enzo Fernandez doing the same, and this was a game that, for me, the early parts of the game showed Chelsea's threat. But ultimately, one of the early deciders was the fact that 3 yellow cards were handed out within the first 15 minutes. That meant that certain players were on a knife edge. Zubimendi for us. And again, with Mosquera picking up an early booking, it became very difficult for us to really get into the physical battle because players were anxious about picking up yellow cards, but at the same time knew they had to fully commit. And for us, it was a game that we couldn't quite get our technical level going. I felt that we were sloppy. And I also felt against Bayern, we struggled early on to find our reference points. In this game, I think we really struggled with central build-up. Raya playing that ball out. I think both Hincapie and Mosquera were unsure completely where to stand, where to receive, and it created a disconnect between the defence and midfield. And that's unsurprising. These two have only played one game together, and they haven't played with that midfield pairing before. So this was a big game. But let's have a look, firstly, at the goal that got us back into the game, because it was a big one. And it's some very nice play. You see the ball, Martin Odegaard on the pitch, gets the ball in that right half space, and this is a position that we know he is so good in. 59 minutes on the clock, and you can see Bukayo Saka on the right-hand side, Jurriën Timber coming in and creating that overlap, and you can see where Mikel Merino is trying to get in behind. Arsenal get the ball goes out, and now you see Saka facing up Cucarella. And this was a really good battle. It was a very aggressive one. Cucarella was on a yellow card very early on, and that yellow card showed in this moment. You see him standing up, cuts back. He's on his right foot now. Cucarella is reluctant to come in and really commit to him, getting touched out with him. Saka, bang, cuts it back. And now you can see the options. Merino's got himself right in between the two centre-backs here. He's in a prime position to head that ball into the back of the net. And Saka knows that. Ball comes in, and you can see it here. Arsenal have 2 men lining up, and it's Merino who's ultimately in the best position. But you can see Noni Madueke, desperate to score at Stamford Bridge, attacking that back post. And it's Merino. Brilliant header into the back of the net, and it's 1 each. And what I loved about this is straight away, two players go running for the ball. There is no time to celebrate. There is a case of let's go get the ball, get straight back down the other end. And Merino's telling his teammates that, telling the fans. But you see Saka here, when he gets it, he's onto his right foot. The cross isn't quite on in this position. There's a lot of work for the attacker to do. Saka knows that. That's when he cuts back. And again, you can see he throws the whole Chelsea team. But look at how quickly, once he gets this ball, once he turns, he has this out of his feet. Bang, straight in. This is inch perfect. And you can see it from this position. Merino was just watching that ball come in and bang, onto his head, into the back of the net. Absolutely glorious. But this was a chance that we didn't generate enough of. We didn't get those 1v1 positions on the outside enough. We didn't have Madueke running at gusto enough. We didn't have Saka really going at Cucarella in advanced positions, and that was a problem. But one of the biggest problems for me in this game was the Chelsea threat. And I'm going to have a look at some of those moments. So from early on in the game, we saw Chelsea really threatening. And we also saw Arsenal. I mentioned technical errors, tactical errors, and physical errors. Well, this is a prime example of all three in one. This is Calafiori's yellow card. You see it now. Arsenal, I mentioned the central build-up. Look at the amount of space between Raya, Mosquera, or Hincapie, who you can see on the left of the screen, and Calafiori where he gets the ball. You can see the on-run of Zubimendi here. Calafiori gets the ball. He gets the ball in this position all the time. And when he popped up here, I thought, great, we're starting to purr a bit. And 9 times out of 10, he gets that ball. It's a heavy touch inside, but it's a very deliberate one. And he popped that ball with his right foot into Zubimendi, who's making the run, who's able to give that ball on to Eze. But no, when I mentioned the technical, tactical, and physical errors, this is all three, because here he goes. Where's he going now? Reece James is around him. He takes that touch. He's gone into no man's land at this point. Where's he going to pass that ball? And because he's switched off, he's not quite on it. And this was a player that started this game in really, really good form. He was one of the standout players in the first half, and he makes this daft error. Gets it. James is in, and look how easily Reece James nicks that ball. This isn't something that we see from Calafiori. He's a big, strong, dominant defender who glides into midfield and has those huge shoulders and the shuffling feet to get away from his man. James is away. Now he carries that ball. Calafiori's running backwards, and when you see it from this angle, you can see how bad the touch was from Calafiori, because it wasn't on to play to Timber. Saka's not there to receive, and Arsenal are completely disjointed at this point of the pitch. And this is why I've highlighted this movement in particular. And Calafiori ultimately pulls Reece James down, very similar to Mosquera earlier in the game, and it's a yellow card. That's another Arsenal player in the first half defensively on a yellow card. And when you see it here, see how easily James gets in behind him. Calafiori, bit of a push there. Another pop at him here. And there we go, just hauls his shoulder down. And then these are a couple of examples that just frustrated me. Chelsea were able to build up through central positions against us. On this occasion, it's Reece James again, gets the ball, pops it off, and here he goes. Little 1-2 with gusto. And look at how easily Reece James runs through two Arsenal players now. That pass comes into Milo Gusto. Here he goes, past the first one, past Mikel Merino, past Eze, gets his head up in the middle of the park. And you can see it's Declan Rice is the only player in position to actually be able to defend against this. And that ball floats across the pitch with ease out to Garnacho. And when Chelsea made those changes, Garnacho became a very good out ball for them. And then we had this very early on in the game. Again, this is chances that they've created from central positions. This one came out in a wide area, but look at the number of Chelsea players that are able to come in and attack the edge of the box. 3 Arsenal defenders in the box, Calafiori getting back in, and we see Hincapie out wide defending. But again, it's that big hole around the edge of the box at the D. Declan Rice is making the run back in, but everyone felt leggy. Everyone felt just a bit off it. Cross comes in. Mosquera here tries to backheel it, get a touch on it, be dominant. And this is where you see someone like William Saliba gets a big foot to it and just deals with that, comes away with the ball. And Mosquera is young. He is inexperienced, and he gets that. But here, Estavao should be putting that in the back of the net. It's not an easy chance because it's bouncing out to him. But again, that was a big let-off for Arsenal in 18 minutes. And had that have gone in, It's a very, very difficult game. It's a big uphill battle for us. But again, you watch the replay here and look how easily we see a Chelsea player go round Arsenal. Hincapie is out to defend it. And again, you can see it. And it's that area at the edge of the D. Look where Estavao is now. When that ball goes out from Mosquera, you can see just the big, big gap of space in and around the edge of the Arsenal box. That's something we just don't see anymore. Here he comes in, and he really has to do better. And then back to the Reece James chance. But this is an example of things that Arsenal just don't usually do wrong. And we did just too many times. But if you look at the game itself, you look at where the moments of dominance came. Chelsea had some big moments. Obviously, the goal on 48 minutes, but the Estavao chance was the big one. And when you look at this, Chelsea have been given a huge amount of praise, but this does show Arsenal as the more dominant side. You look at the key moments in the game, Arsenal are ultimately the more threatening team. But we came into this as the team top of the table, not Chelsea. And that's the reason why we've been criticised more heavily than they have. But it's another game where we've been playing a team close to the top of the table and we haven't come away with the win. But at the same time, this was a tough game at Stamford Bridge. And we had other moments in the game. After the red card, you look at this one from Martinelli. This is brilliant play from Declan Rice. He gets the ball. Man tries to skip past him, stands up strong, brilliant tackle to win the ball off Pedro Neto, and now he gets his head up. He starts galloping up the pitch, and you can see Ez is not ahead of him. He looks inside. Zubamendi's not quite going. And I mentioned heavy legs. This is what it felt like a lot of the game. Chelsea played at midday last Saturday. Then they played on Tuesday night. Arsenal played Sunday, Wednesday. And it felt like we were just caught up with a bit in this game as well. And the news of Chalobah going down, we've a lot of players coming back and a lot of players out. And it felt like it cost us slightly. Rice here gets the ball, pops it in. And Eze had a quiet game overall, but he did have moments in the game. He had a very big chance that he created for Saka early on in the first half. I felt Saka should have done better when it came out from a corner. Brilliant touch from Eze. He pops it into Saka, who shot with his right foot from the edge of the box. Again, I thought he should have done better. But in this moment, I thought this is brilliant play from Eze. You can see touch to take it away on his left foot, and Martinelli's making that run. Now, again, we've been critical of Martinelli, what he does when he gets the ball to his feet around the edge of the box, when he's not galloping in behind. On this occasion, he does exactly what you would want. And look at this from Declan Rice. Brilliant left foot pass. It pops it in between two players. And again, with Martinelli, gets that ball, edge of the box. And this is a brilliant shot. It creates a very, very big save from Robert Sanchez, who had a very good game yesterday. He's a keeper that most people are critical of. Most people don't rate him, and rightly so. But these moments were happening, and that came at 0-0, and that was a big moment in the game. But that was just after the red card. And look, we don't need to say a lot about this. This is a horrendous challenge, straight leg, but it wasn't just a challenge where he was late and he went over the ball. It was so aggressive, and that was the theme of Caicedo's game. It was rightly given as a red card. The commentary team very much felt it was going to be one, and VAR made the right call in bringing Anthony Taylor over to the monitor. Taylor had the yellow card out. The game had moved so fast. It looked like a bad challenge, but in real time, because it moved so quickly and Arsenal went forward with an attacking piece of play with players ahead of the ball, it was rightly played on. It was only when you saw the replay in full motion that you realize how bad this challenge was. And it should be Caicedo out for 3 games now, which is a big, big blow for Chelsea. But Declan Rice was the story going into the game. And I've just showed an example of one of his key bits of play to move Arsenal up the pitch. But you look at his touch map in this game, and he was without doubt Arsenal's best player all over the park. 75 successful touches, 11 unsuccessful, and he was the dominant factor in midfield for us. He was the player that really got the team going, and his touches come all over the park. He was playing as a 6 in the second half. He was playing as an 8 in the first half, getting up and down, getting in between the centre-backs, the way Zubamendi does and splitting them. It meant that Arsenal were playing almost a 2-1-7 in the second half. And that meant that we were very much a team on the ascendancy, but we didn't create enough opportunity. And Declan's passing map, you can see, it's all over. 72 total passes, 67 accurate ones, and you can see he's popping that ball all over the park, and you can see the number of times he's getting that ball in the sixth position and going all over long around the pitch. But not a huge number of line breakers in here, not a lot of passes into really dangerous areas. You can see one entry into the box, which I'm going to show now, and that was one to Bukayo Saka. And on another day, I think Saka does better. Ball comes out, Rice goes backwards, Mosquera just a nice touch off, put it into Rice. You can play more than me. And here, Arsenal are in another aggressive position high up the park. Rice gets the ball, looks up, and Saka's the free man. He takes his moment. Now, there is an option to go for a reverse pass here into someone like Merino, who is making that run off the shoulder of the defender, but Saka is the obvious one. And you look at this. Now, Saka goes first time. In this moment, can Bukayo Saka take a touch? Cucarella, I mentioned, was on a yellow card. The goal came because he couldn't get close to him. Saka goes first time with this ball. And for me, in this position, we know how good Bukayo Saka is. He can probably take a touch. This is a difficult ball to play first time. You have to beat Cucarella. You also have to get it across the centre backs and into Merino's path and keep it away from Robert Sanchez. So essentially, you need a whipped ball that comes back towards the attacking striker, which is Mikel Merino in this case. But he goes first time, and it's a weak limp cross across the edge of the box. But it was an example of Declan Rice's passing, and that was him being able to get his head up. And again, you could see at the start of that move just how many Arsenal players are upfield. Just pause that again and look at how deep Chelsea are, how far back Arsenal have got Chelsea pinned. And it was an example of how many players that we were committing forward. And at times we were almost too aggressive. Mikel Arteta really went for it with his changes, 2 big changes at halftime. And then he was bringing on wingers, strikers. He really, really went for this game. It just felt like the execution on the pitch wasn't quite right. But let's have a look at the Chelsea goal, because this is a very, very frustrating one to concede. And it starts off with us conceding a free kick. Ball comes in, and it was Hincapie over aggressive. And this was a good save from Raya. Is it going on target? I don't know, but it's a save he absolutely has to make. Goes out, but when Chelsea get the corner, this is where the real frustration comes in. Arsenal defending it. This is multiple mistakes in one. This is where you miss Saliba and Gabriel, 2 players that really organize. You also miss someone like Kai Havertz or a Victor Gyökeres, who was very effective at defending these earlier in the season. Now look at Raya's positioning. He's not overly opposed in this position. I always say keepers need to be stronger. Raya comes out. He's not quite going forward. He's hitting the near post, but I'm reluctant to massively criticize him. It just goes over his head. Could he have been better positioned? It's a flick on. It's very similar to the one we scored earlier in the season, but it's one that I feel like we should be doing better from. You watch it coming in full motion, and it's just far too easily. Bang, in the back of the net, Chelsea 1-0 up. But let's look at it from another angle here. And this is really damning of Mosquera. So you see the ball, but what you also see is Enzo Fernandez is in an offside position. Ball comes in. Now it hits the Chelsea player's head over the top, and Mosquera is grappling with Enzo Fernandez. And you can see here, right, 2 arms around him. What's he doing? He can't see the ball because he's focused on the duel with his man, and it goes straight over his head and into the back of the net. The frustrating thing is that Arsenal are set up here to actually defend that ball. We are in a position to nod that ball out. 48 minutes at Stamford Bridge, we concede a very, very soft goal when Chelsea are down to 10 men. And that is the best opportunity for you to score when you're down to 10 men, is from a set piece. But Chelsea remained aggressive. They were threatening. And I mentioned that central access. They were able to get through us in the middle of the park, which is something we don't see often, and then ping it out to the wide areas and create threat. Estavao in the first half, Garnacho, these players really helped get Chelsea up the park. Delap. It was a case of Arsenal letting them run and not giving the opportunity to close down early in the park and put Chelsea under more pressure. They had an out ball, so we had a lot of the possession, but that usual counter pressing that we do that aggressively pins teams back, we weren't able to quite do it. And when Martin Odegaard came on, we had a real extra presence in the team, but we just weren't quite at it in the way we usually are. And that was the big disappointment. But you look at some of the moments that did come later in the game, and Mikel Merino's shot. I mentioned Martin Odegaard coming on. Some very nice play here. Odegaard gets the ball in from Saka. And again, the number of Chelsea players back. But Arsenal aren't exactly threatening in huge numbers here. We did commit players forward, but are we committing enough centrally towards that kind of zone 14 and more towards the left half space that can attack the box? Odegaard gets the ball, and now you can see Madueke is on the run. He's coming inside, but this is brilliant play. You see Victor Gyökeres is making that run again between the two centre backs where Mikel Merino punished them, and he gets it. Is this a deliberate back heel or is it a bad touch? Because it's not a great pass from Jurriën Timber. It's flashed in at him, but he doesn't have many options of what he can do here. Merino gets the ball, and I think in this position, if he doesn't slip, he's in a much better position to do something with this ball. But you can see Madueke is in a position calling for the ball and looking for it with an option on. And here we go. Merino slips, and the ball goes again to Sanchez, and Gyökeres ultimately gets a yellow card for this. But this was a game where I felt a lot of players were slipping. Hincapie in the first half, multiple times slipped, fell over. Did Arsenal need to get the long studs on early? But it just felt like a game where things weren't quite going right for us. And even at the end of the game, you look at this, moments away from winning it. The ball comes across, Jurriën Timber up to win the header. He scored against Bayern midweek, so you can't criticize him for being in that position. He's taken a risk. We're committing bodies forward, but he ultimately takes it off the head of Victor Gyökeres, who is there to put the ball into the back of the net. And this is what it felt like. It felt like a game where we needed that bit of luck. We weren't good. Chelsea outplayed us in this game. And it was one where I felt that we just needed to get over the line. But the reason I say this could be a good point is because we weren't good. And sometimes when you're not good in a game, you have to take the point and move on. Because if you don't, you can get hung up on this. This was our third big game in a week. Chelsea also played midweek. But sometimes you do have to take that point away from home. We've now been to Anfield, Old Trafford, St. James's Park, and Stamford Bridge, and played City at home and Tottenham at home in our first 13 games. That's a huge run. We've got an easier run coming up. Take this point, get players fit. Hopefully William Saliba is back quickly, and get ourselves back on the training ground, fit again and ready to go on Wednesday. But before we go, a couple more things to look at. I mentioned Declan Rice being absolutely phenomenal. This tackle, again, Chelsea getting in too easily and Arsenal not picking up that area around the edge of the box. Estavao comes in. You can see Enzo Fernandez in acres of space before this. And it's, in this case, again, Pedro Neto, who Declan Rice won the ball off for the Martinelli shot, gets round him and bang. This is absolutely inch perfect. It's one of those tackles that if he doesn't make it, there's a good chance that ball goes towards goal. And there's also a very good chance that if he mistimes it, that it's a penalty to Chelsea. But the key thing to look at from this, the key takeaway is this is a point that keeps us 5 points clear at the top of the Premier League table. We have played some really, really tough games. The next step for this Arsenal team is to go and beat a team around us. We need to make sure when City and Chelsea come to the Emirates in the second half of the season that we have a fit team. Our players are available and ready to go toe-to-toe with these teams and beat them. We need to take points off our rivals in this situation. We could have gone 7 points clear at the top yesterday, but we have to be content with 5. This was a big, big game. It was a battle from minute one, and we're still 5 points clear at the top. So take the points, move forward, and keep going. Ultimately, that's all we can do in this situation. It's a disappointing result. It was a disappointing performance. I felt Chelsea were better than us in many scenarios. We did have more of the ball, but we didn't create enough going forward. The big moment came when Martin Odegaard came on. That's something that has to be looked at as a positive. He looked sharp. He looked ready to go. And ultimately, we are in a situation where we are starting to get players back. Saliba going out is a big loss, but it doesn't sound serious. Trossard shouldn't be out long. And we are starting to see players return. Now, let's go midweek, pick up 3 points, and get back to winning ways once again. If you've enjoyed the show, please hit the like button. Drop a comment and tell me what you think. Do you think this will be a good point at the end of the season? What do you think what went wrong yesterday? And what can we do to fix the issues that we saw? Also, please hit the subscribe button. Please keep coming back to the channel. And thank you, as always, for your support. Have a great day.
You're now listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.